Hello, once again we'd like to welcome you to the NAACP Roundtable, where today we know we're going to have a very lively discussion with the people that we have sitting here. We're going to start off to our left, for everybody to, say your name and something real brief about you, then we're going to jump right into the discussion. Omar?
Omar Sanel, community activist. Assalamu alaikum to my grandchildren. Can't remember all your names. Pass it on.
Hicks Harrison. NAACP. Pass on.
Anderson Jr.
Jeremy Collins, civil rights lawyer.
Marco Harris, business agent for ILA Local 1883.
William Ash, International Vice President for Local 1694.
Okay, good. We're going to jump to you real quick about the repealing of the death penalty. It didn't pass, but I know you guys recorded who didn't vote yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We kept a really tight hold on who voted no, and in coordination with the NAACP and many organizations across the state, we are targeting a handful of those no votes. We understand the issue can come back up between March 8th and March 10th. So we have all-out press in those districts to get those no votes turned to yes votes. We've got a Moral Monday presence that we've created at the legislature, Mondays starting at 12 noon. So tomorrow, if anybody is free, or if you can make your way down to Legislative Hall, we'd like to see you at 12 noon at Wesley United Methodist Church, just down from Legislative Hall. We process down and have a moral witness there at the legislature. We've got a program next week, March 5th, at the Wilmington Public Library, highlight the need for repeal. We're contacting legislators every day. We're writing letters. We're making telephone calls. As the brother said earlier, this is a revolution. It's a part of a broader agenda. Our community is underserved by the death penalty, not served, the entire state of Delaware is not served well by the death penalty. So we want to highlight that and ask legislators to vote yes on Senate Bill 40.
Real quickly, if people want to contact you to join in, how can they do that?
So they can contact the organization through the website, derepeal.org, derepeal.org. At the top of the page is a tab that says Make a Difference. You can click on that link. You can contact your legislator. You can send a message to our campaign. You can make a telephone call. You can write a letter. You can send a text message. And if you want to contact me directly, my email address is jeremy@scsj.org.
You need to talk to the people too.
Everything I just said. No, but we want you to be involved. And if you have a moment now, go to your computer or on your smartphone, type in derepeal.org, derepeal.org. Top right half of the page, there's a tab that says Make a Difference. We want every Delaware citizen possible to click on that link, contact their legislator more ways than one, a telephone call, an email, whatever it takes. We believe we have the momentum. We have a growing coalition of people, and we want to show that power to the legislature when they come back into session, and we want to ask them to vote yes on Senate Bill 40.
Mr. Street, listening to what he's saying, we know how you've been in this struggle for many years. How do you view that and tie it in with education?
Well, our people who are on death row were not the students who came through and were on the honor roll and went on to college and benefited from the education that's available to young black children here in the state of Delaware. And I want to commend you for what you're doing, for your efforts. I think that you are becoming one of the strongest voices we've had in Dover for a long time, and you're making presentations on multiple issues, and you're certainly articulate, you're effective, and you're passionate in your positions, and seeing, as you mature and you think about the future, one of the things that I have to do is think about who's going to replace roles and functions.
That's right.
And the fact that we have young people stepping in and moving in, it does my heart good, and I'm excited about you, and I really like working with you, and I like the work that you're doing. I think it's important work.
Thank you.
And folks who have a problem with the death penalty, you know, don't sit up and tell me about your Christian faith and all that. Murder's murder.
Exactly.
And whether it's committed by somebody in the street or whether it's committed by the state of Delaware under lethal injection, electric chair, whatever they've been doing, murder is still murder. And we know for a fact, numerically and statistically, who's most likely to receive the death penalty, and we know who's most likely not to have good legal representation in the courthouse, and we know who's most likely to have been disenfranchised from childhood to adulthood. So in terms of your faith, your belief in God, and what we know is just totally unfair in the system, I think this is a very, very important issue, and literally it's a matter of life and death. So, struggle continues.
Yeah, do you really think that when you and I was going to the governor's office and stuff, and I was hollering about from school to jail, that the young guys come on, get suspended or suspension, come on the corner, ain't got no place to go, hang on the corner, get a package, get a gun in their hand. They do something they ain't supposed to do. Next thing they are is on death row. You know, kicking them out of school, not giving them the right education, that causes them life in prison or death row with no jobs or nothing. So
well, you know, the school to jail pipeline, school to prison pipeline is a nationally recognized challenge that we have as a people. Certainly with the state of Delaware having in 2008 recorded 2.5 times the national average rate of suspension. Certainly in December of 2013, when the Office of Civil Rights came in and studied the Christina School District and found that there was discrimination in school discipline district-wide at all levels, we know full well that the disparity in the schoolhouse ends up with the disparity in the jailhouse, and that's why the work that we do is important, and we've got to stay on the battlefield and continue in this struggle. And you know, I told you when last year was 60 years after Brown, everybody wanted to have a celebration. I said, celebrate what? Okay, what is there to celebrate?
Ain't nothing.
Separate but equal is still inherently unequal. And the May 17, 1954 Brown versus Board decision, we're right back where we started. And if you look at what's going on now, and you know, and I said it very clearly at the last State Board of Education meeting, the history of the state of Delaware is that only a judge or judges has been able to bring about systemic change in the school system. And ultimately, that has not been to our benefit. But in an instant situation where we're asking simply for a reduction in the number of school districts and a weighted funding formula for high poverty schools, and you got either the State Board of Education not supporting it, or ultimately the General Assembly is not supporting it, who is disenfranchised by reducing the number of districts in the city of Wilmington? Who is disenfranchised by seeing to it that children who are suffering irreparable harm educationally receive the additional services and the additional help that they need? Nobody's disenfranchised, but you can be assured that the state of Delaware will never, in my opinion, on its own, do anything to help low-income children of color unless we continue to move forward and recognize that it's a continuation of the struggle. And I didn't go down to the State Board of Education and threaten litigation. What I said was, I don't threaten litigation. I bring it.
Okay, but let me ask you this. Jobs, death penalty, prison, racism in the state of Delaware, all that. Don't you think that black folks should get together and ready to sue the state of Delaware for not giving our equal share of what we're supposed to get, our tax dollars, our anything else? Don't you think every time a person come up with a good idea or putting people to work or a way to solve the prison problems or a way to get rid of the death penalty or a way to deal with racism in the state, because there's 5 or 6 guys in the state of Delaware, start with the Department of Labor, who's doing all kind of crazy stuff? Don't you think that we have been left behind with Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina, and Arkansas and Louisiana had moved up.
Well,
And we still on that
aren't you the
plantation?
one that went down to the General Assembly and said that the old Mississippi, University of Mississippi, has a better record now
And than University of Delaware did.
than the University of Delaware
Yes.
in terms of admission of black children?
Yes.
You're the one that went down there and said
Yes,
that.
I did.
And turned the University of Delaware. Was no accident that within 2 weeks later, the University of Delaware president resigned. But let's look at what's going on right now. And I'm looking at Kamoka and I'm
And they need to come into
looking at Ash. And over the last couple of years, we've been fighting, and literally demanding. Sometimes we ask, sometimes we demand something that just makes so much common sense. It's ridiculous. Right. The expansion of the port. Now, when I was a student at the University of Delaware, I was never broke. And the reason I was never broke because every time I came close to getting broke, I went down, got on a banana boat, got on a meat ship, got on coconut, got on something. You've been at the port for a long time.
Yeah.
You've been at the port. My point being, who of sound mind and judgment would not support the expansion of the port, which the beneficiaries are residents of the state of Delaware, Newcastle County, and Wilmington, and ultimately our young people, especially young people that we've not treated fairly, and who want to work, and you know good and well that those young people on the corner shooting, some of them are scared, and I'm outraged about the fact that we've got some of our own young people poisoning our people, poisoning our community, but they're out of options. And here's an opportunity to give them some options, and we're fighting.
But when you
It shouldn't be a fight about it.
Yeah,
But Mo, when you
and
get
I agree.
talking about the 500-600 people, young guys who come.
Yeah, but I agree, and I think that when we look at a lot and most of them, probably the predominant issues that's impacting and is the source of our social problems is poverty.
Right.
I mean poverty, education. A kid that's hungry, that's going to school hungry, with raggedy clothes, and other kids that's teasing him and stuff, it's not going to learn nothing. It's going to have low self-esteem, and pretty soon it's going to drop out. But if you give that kid's parents a decent paying job, a middle class job where they're making money, and that kid can feel proud when he's leaving the house. So I'm saying, so education, you talk about crime. I mean, the source of our problem is poverty. And a community gets out of poverty through jobs. You work your way out of poverty. And so to me, that while we're fighting the sores that are coming from this disease, that we gotta fight the disease, which is poverty. I mean, we fight for education. To me, that's fighting the source of poverty. You know, so we got to base, I think, unite and base around a jobs program that's going to create jobs so that these young people, anytime you got 40% of young people, black men and Latino men in Wilmington, 40 plus probably, waking up every morning with no job to go to, you're going to have a problem with drugs, crime, and everything else. I mean, to me, you know, so what Jay's talking about and what we've been advocating is we have the program that will create thousands and tens of thousands of jobs for folks who ordinarily, you know, because everybody's not going to school. All our kids are not going to college. You know, they're not going to college. All our kids are not going to college. And some of them are going to make mistakes and get problems with the law and stuff. But we're saying that our job, and Jack could tell you, that we have created a program and a concept and a proposal that can clear these streets up, give folks good middle class paying jobs, and we can, you know, we'll solve a lot of our issues.
And I say the blockage is, keep your point, I say the blockage is because we black is the reason why we having so much opposition to get there. The few meetings that I went to since I've been retired, and I went to them few meetings, all I did was sit back and observe where was the opposition coming from. And the opposition was coming from people that know nothing about the port. But they do know that there's black leadership at the port. Even when Skinny them was alive, all those new extensions of the cranes coming in, et cetera. So they don't see themselves getting that kind of money. But it's really, what I'll say, it's un-American and unpatriotic for them not to support this because we're all American.
But the whole key come to the point I get. It's politics. It's the politics that come in our community every 4 years, every 2 years. Give us a couple dollars. Don't give us nothing. Ain't nobody came out of our neighborhood yet made over $100,000.
But we let them do it.
Yes.
I was getting ready to say.
We let them do it.
Yes.
Here's the main source of this whole thing. If you think about it, everybody was in an uproar when DuPont was talking about laying off 6,000 people.
Right.
They found $8 million within 6 weeks to save DuPont, which was the right thing to do.
And gave them a tax break.
But here's the problem I got with that. We was asking for $500,000 to do a study, an environmental study, and they've dragged their feet for a year and a half, almost 2 years, over something simple that would create 10,000 jobs, indirect and direct jobs at the waterfront. And for whatever reason, they say they're gonna move and work with us, and it's a slow process, but you can find $8 million in 6 weeks and couldn't find $500,000 in 18 months.
Yeah, for a certain type of
Omar
worker,
said it
a certain
the best.
type of worker, you
If we
upset.
don't wake up, you got an election coming up, you got a primary coming up. Stop being brainwashed, and Jay said it best, by a few of our own people come in our neighborhoods and vote for this person.
And get paid to do it. And
Read what this person have done for you in Dover for the last 4 years or however long they've been down there. Wake up. I told my wife no longer than 2 days ago, some people gonna get upset at me because I'm on the AFL also. But I can vote for an R just as good as I can vote for a D if he's supporting what we need to help these communities. It's not only the city of Wilmington, it's the whole state of Delaware. And that's what we've said from day one. We want to create jobs for the state of Delaware. You name me where there is any blue-collar jobs in the state of Delaware anymore. Everything is closed up. GM Chrysler left. And we look at our top politicians and ask, what are you doing? Oh, we're going to help you. When? When it's too late? That's what I'm looking at.
Well, but you've gone from, really, as far as what I'm concerned, an effort to try to basically give the poor away, you privatize it, and then we literally had to, you ended up, instead of the state giving up the final $300,000, you had to run to the city, run to the county. We put the money up,
And we still short.
And we're still short,
And we still short.
and we're
Right.
a year behind.
Yes.
Politicians again.
But the potential was 17 for the creation of 17,000 or more jobs. That's going to be beneficial to everybody.
Exactly.
It solves some of the state budget
Exactly.
problems
I think
right
you
away.
got-
And
I
I've
think the
said that
worry
to
is-
several politicians. You
Exactly.
talking about budget problems. If you can create 10,000 jobs and tax spinoff is $1 billion, you're solving some of your tax-based problems that you have here in the state of Delaware. And you're bringing the poor class, because right tomorrow, for an example, we're going to hire at least 300 extra people tomorrow to go to work
Can I get
with
a
our
job?
workload.
Can I
Yes,
get a job?
you can have a job.
But
I
this is,
think one of the problems I get.
go ahead.
I think one of the problems is when you look at the jails. I forgot the number of how many.
That's big business.
It's like
let's talk about who's running
75%
that.
black folks or more in jail, young black guys. Then you got 66,000 people on probation or parole, and they can't get jobs. If they can get jobs, they can go for early parole or early release or whatever, and get a pardon and become whole again.
But here's another problem with that. That 68 to 85% of them in jail cannot read with comprehension over the 4th grade. Right. So you think they don't know this? And I always say when we are having these kind of discussions, that Desegregation Act that Jay and them was fighting for back in the late 70s, 78, 79, when they broke us up into 4 school districts, I heard Bishop Morton today talking about it. All that history, that little bit of history we was getting about being black, where all the teachers used to live on 10th Street, the doctors lived on Sherman Street. We had all those professional people. We don't have them anymore because we done integrated into this society. And that's another thing on this other group I'm with, interfaith group. We're talking about we need to reanalyze integrating our community into the dominant culture. Because we didn't have all these problems when we was in Jim Crow. And I hate to say that. We didn't have all these problems when we was in segregation. But now that we done integrated, all these problems come up. Our children is crazy as hell. They've been miseducated. They don't have no knowledge of self. They have no, when I go into prison, they don't have no knowledge of even God, existence of God. Because what? Because their parents gave them nothing. These
The
kids,
schools are drugging them.
these kids, that's right. And I
schools are
got on my
drugging them every
grandkids, I got on
morning.
my daughters about that, talking about a drug will make my grandson be more attentive. Hell yeah, they make him a drug addict too. Off of that, whatever the dope is. Because the man-made drugs ain't nothing like medicine. You take medicine, but the medicine's not to cure you. It's to contain you and whatever ailments you got. So the whole problem goes back again to racism and the unconstitutional of their action toward us. Delaware is only one of 6 states that won't even let a felon vote. Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi let a felon in jail vote. Delaware don't. So we got a political problem, like you alluding to, and we got to make sure this time around we put in people that know what we need from them immediately, so they can get work on immediately. Because right now they're doing that.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
That's our problem. Go ahead.
Well, I think this is a perfect conversation. I think we need to understand that the system is working exactly the way it's supposed to. It's not a broken system. All right. This system, if you think about this, at the time the Constitution was written, right, when we were not counted as a full person, right, and then that document was forced to be changed, but there was an amendment that put it that codified slavery through incarceration. Right? There's a vested interest in the law. We talk about a vested interest. There's a vested interest in making sure that DuPont is saved, but the port jobs are not. There's a vested interest in making sure that the brothers and sisters that are incarcerated can't read, because we need that cheap labor to continue this capitalistic cycle, right? And so when we talk about equal protection, what one child, let's say on the north side, is not getting, when children maybe on the west side are getting, we need to really analyze. So when these politicians come into our community, right, if we're going to be thinking revolutionary, if we're going to be thinking about how we really change this system, because we have these, we call it intersectional problems, right? We got education, incarceration, lack of quality job. My father, he worked at a paper mill. When you could support a 5-member family working at a paper mill. Today you can't do that, right? That's by design. That's right. That's why the middle class is shrinking. You got the poor folks growing, and that top 10% or 1% getting richer and richer and richer. I think that when we're talking to our politicians and we're talking to our community folks, we have to diagnose the system for what it actually is. It's working just like it's supposed to.
Only thing I differ with that is because, a lot of us don't know that there was black people at the signing of this Constitution. That thing about 3/5 of a man came years after the Constitution put together. Yeah. There's ills and bays on the Constitution, original Constitution of this country, because the language of the Constitution couldn't come from the Bible. It had to come from another source, that we hold these true self-evidence, that all men, meaning women, not just men, man is mine, woman, are created equal and endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights. That was to include every human being in American society. Right. But the implementation of that, now the Pilgrims couldn't read and write. Right. But there was a group of people that came over here from Europe, right, especially around the time of 1800s, 1865 Emancipation Proclamation. They came over here because they were getting kicked out of Europe because they were creating ghettos, etc. They are control of this banking in that country, in that Eastern Bloc, and they over here. They got us in World War I and World War II. So I agree with everything except for the implementation has been them, because they were only the ones at the table making the implementation. But the Constitution itself gives us all the rights as citizens.
Well, so what? But when you just quoted, you said, and among those rights are life, and it goes on, are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That's the Declaration of Independence. And it also says that when these rights are denied by a system of government over long periods of time, it is your duty to destroy or abolish that system of government. That's what I'm talking about. Now, my point being, we can sit here and talk all night. What is our duty at this point? As so-called leaders of the NAACP, leaders in the workforce, what is our duty as it relates to encouraging our people, motivating and directing our people to destroy or abolish this system of government which is not working to our benefit?
Unified. We had a mayor who said there's no black leadership in the country, no black leadership in Wilmington, and no black leadership in Delaware. And I understand that to this point, that we are not organized. Labor, the church is not organized. We haven't been organized sufficiently since we got out of Jim Crow in late 1800s. So we have to go back to that unity that all of y'all can agree that we don't have it anymore.
Omar, A. Phil Randolph got together with Martin Luther King, and they got the groups who's doing things, this group and this group and that group. We got groups. I done worked with 50 groups, okay? This is the beginning of 6 guys, which I got 6 more to come on, females and stuff. We should take the ones who who got ideas and trying to change something through revolution or trying to stop them, and we should all come together. And we should take the black people who go around our neighborhood and sell us out for 3 pieces of silver and laugh and joke in our face, then go back with the man and stop us from doing what we got. 'Cause we can't blame on white folks all the time. It's our folks is really cutting those deals and get that program money and stuff like that.
This is where I want you to go, Mr. President. All right, this is what I'm respectfully suggesting. Okay, when Kamoka and I say we need you as a community to show up at the port meeting, we need to be there.
Right.
Okay, when Jeremy says there's going to be another vote on the death penalty, we need to be there.
But we also, Jay, we also need to do this, and let's be true. A lot of people ain't got the money to pay cable and get Channel 28. A lot of people ain't Facebook, and a lot of people don't have email, especially on 8th and Pine and 6th.
And in the civil rights struggle in the 60s, there was no email, there was no Facebook.
But they got the word around by going from door to door.
There was no Facebook, and Dr. King put how many people in D.C., and we got the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, all those things that Clarence Thomas and the Reagan court have been hell-bent and determined to take away from us. And now that there's going to be a new appointment to the Supreme Court, we got an opportunity to take that back. My point being, voter registration, voter education, and active community participation.
And the whole community,
things
not just a piece of
those are the things
but
that
the whole community.
At the head of that was the black church.
This is election season right now.
Right.
Yeah.
We should be getting together and developing our agenda and saying this is what we want from these people who are running.
Right.
And if somebody comes to us
Right.
and asks for a vote and cannot commit to support this, then we will vote against them. We don't care if they're Republican, if they're Democrat, if they're independent, or if they whatever. But I'm saying we have to have an agenda that protects us and helps us.
We can't give in either.
We got an agenda coming from the NAACP.
And
We got an agenda coming from the
we
collective
need
labor.
jobs.
Got one from, we got the
We need
centralized.
jobs as central to all this other stuff we're talking about doing.
Right.
We need jobs. We need jobs so that we can have families again in the community who are middle class and are able to buy homes, send their kids to college, and that kind of stuff, instead of these young folks being on the corners and the only job they can get is selling drugs because he's the best employee out there for them right now, because we have failed to do what we need to do to make these jobs happen. And I'm saying, and we got the proposal that make it happen.
Now, I got people, I told church people in the churches in our neighborhood, I said, if there is a store in a 4-block radius around your church, you need to own the store.
Yes.
Why? Because then once you start to own the store, you employ these young people, you bring them into the church, because most of them know nothing about God, and you also begin to hook up with the other churches and start supplying each other. It's got to start with economics somewhere.
It sounds good. It sounds good, but when a preacher, and I seen on TV down South Carolina, when a politician don't mean nobody no good, and they can go in that church and get on that pulpit and lie to a bunch of people, and then 2 years later, the community is dirty, filthy, the blacks is going to jail, going to death penalty, no education, getting through out of school, and we still allow them to come there. Hey, we ain't got ourselves together. We don't have ourselves together. And we need to figure a way how to get ourselves together, because you know why? We're going to be dead, and the next generation going to catch the hell that we caught for the last 50 or 60 years.
Not if I can help it.
Right.
Right? And so,
Go ahead, preach now.
So here's what I hear us saying. We've got issues coming from this flank. We got issues coming from the front. We are troubled on every side. I believe, and this brother said it earlier, and it's echoed throughout this room, we got to get on the same page. Right. You said this group has an agenda. This group has an agenda. Yes. Our group has an agenda. You know, one of the things I've learned, you know, from reading the reading and learning about the civil rights movement, jobs with justice movement, Tent City, you know, getting on the same page, creating what we call in North Carolina a moral agenda that includes all of our issues. Yes. We got to come to the table from a place of love and peace and justice, and sit down and decide what lifts our entire community up. When we talk about moving a house, you don't lift the house one piece at a time. You go to the foundation. You jack the foundation up, and then you move the whole house. It can't just be jobs, can't just be education, can't just be incarceration. And I tell people this all the time. My issue, the death penalty, the thing that I'm here to do more than anything else, it's not the most pressing thing facing the African American community.
Right.
It harms us in a disproportionately violent way. The criminal justice system harms us in a disproportionately violent way. But let's understand this. When I go to Fifth and Washington and I'm talking to people about the death penalty, they're trying to keep the lights on.
Right.
They're trying to keep food on the table. They're trying to make sure the kids are educated appropriately. So I have to be sensitive to that. We all have to be. You know, we sit here in a place of privilege. So long story short, I am going to charge you, my brothers, all of us, to come together in a moral witness, in one voice, with a moral agenda to say, this is what we need, not piecemeal, not just education, not just incarceration, not just jobs, not just criminal justice, not just health disparities. We need all of this because all of these things together function to kill our people.
And that's what I'm trying to say. And I said, and some people disagree with me, in Chicago, with them new young immigrants coming into our community in their stores, disrespecting people, it took them 10 years, but they got all of them joints out of there selling that junk to these kids. And down south where you come from, they had a tailor who was treating the people right. It took them 10 years, but they got rid of him because they band together. And I'm saying, and some people say this ain't, you know, the church ain't gonna do it. But I'm saying when we have young people like you standing up from the church, from the Christian perspective, and start talking like you're talking now, then you're going to bring other people in because a lot of young people do have morals and know that these are moral issues.
But you know what, Omar? You know, we got to educate the church too because I was told this week at a meeting I went to, said, Moshe, you keep on saying, go get the preachers, go get the preachers. The person told me, she say, the preachers is busy, look at the widows in the church, helping them, trying to get the chorus together, trying to make the church work, and when they get outside their door, they really don't know unless somebody comes through there with mercy. They got a march going tomorrow, okay? And the march is about a young lady whose son had died, and they brought her a termination paper.
Who was that?
From the state of Delaware.
The state of Delaware.
Gave her a termination paper where?
At
her funeral.
Son's funeral.
At her son's funeral,
yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure you send
Now,
that message out.
yeah.
That an official from the state of Delaware
Right.
had the unmitigated gall
Right.
to walk into a grieving mother's funeral and hand her a termination paper. That's what you're saying the state of Delaware did.
You're right.
Welcome to the state of Delaware.
Yeah.
Right.
So when the great late Al Plant said, this is a plantation state,
It is what he said.
okay, and I think it was fitting that we looked up here tonight and saw community crossfire and another point of view, because we can't forget from whence we've come.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's why I'm still saying about the
when we
coming
deal-
together.
And when we deal with the preachers, we got to go around the table with them. It's a standoff now. Labor ain't going with the preachers ain't coming to labor. Labor ain't going this way. The preachers ain't going that way. We got to build this revolution and put this whole thing like a stew in the pot and come out with the best stew in the world to help our people. If we don't, we are going to be in worse shape than we ever been in the state of Delaware. We in bad shape right now.
And in these
there's an importance here in terms of the role of the ministers, and sometimes, you know, it's exasperating to me, because if you want to know what you as preachers should be doing, get them in church, okay? Because all of us, somebody raised us and gave us a spiritual foundation, and when put to task, okay, and we had to make certain critical decisions as young men and men, we always gave deference to that spiritual foundation. Well, if our children are not being exposed to that spiritual foundation, then how do you expect them to have morals, scruples, and a reference point of what's right and wrong? So if you want to know what's missing, it's a spiritual foundation, and two, historically and traditionally. Leadership in the black community came from the ministers, came from the independent businessmen who were lawyers, or doctors, and unfortunately are morticians.
Right.
Okay? And still, in terms of those of us who are independent, okay, it's no accident I work for a Lutheran organization, and Lutherans are committed to social justice internationally, and so I'm able to be more outspoken than other people similarly situated. But my point being, we still need that leadership in the African American community for those who are at a point where they are independent, not dependent on the system, and it's their responsibility, it's our responsibility to lead and provide that leadership with the guidance of a spiritual foundation.
And I still say, I'm going to say again, when you have politicians come in your community and we treat them like kings and queens and stuff, and then when we turn around, our community dirty, shootings, houses falling apart, everything falling apart, the Kingswood can't work, people settlement ain't working, this Southbridge neighborhood ain't working, black folks can't get no grants. Try to get a grant. The same politicians that you work hard for and you work day and night, you have a nonprofit, try to get a grant. It's only 2 or 3 black folks in this state that got grants out of the state. Let's be truthful.
The political reality is this.
Yeah.
The political reality is this. The Democrats run the state.
That's right.
The
And
House
they done
and the
failed. They
Senate.
got F.
What
They
has
done
the
failed.
Democratic Party done?
Nothing.
They treat us like
Nothing.
mistresses.
What is the platform of the Democratic Party
For us.
in terms of issues that relate to our
us,
community,
yes.
our issues, unemployment? What is their jobs program? What is the Democratic Party's educational program?
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So we got to begin to think independently, politically, to serve our interests because these parties aren't.
Well,
And
but that's by design, though.
I've seen this.
And we,
that
by like
when women-
zombies, go to the polls every election
Yep.
year and
And
pull
grows
the D.
and grows.
when,
and
Give
grows.
all
when,
the D.
when
By
the
the
women
same- by the
when the
same
women
token,
start speaking up on these
by the
issues,
same
they get
token.
more out of it than we do. When the women are in that church, that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. The women, the congregations in every one of these churches, majority female,
mostly
and
women
most
in
of
the
them are
church.
their kids being
Mostly
killed on the
women
street,
in the church.
miseducated, etc. Once they put the pressure on the preacher, we can't do it because they ain't gonna listen to it. A lot of them still getting money underneath the table. So if them women though, and I've been going around here in these churches since I retired, and these women want some justice, and a lot of these churches that are standing up for things we're talking about, only standing up because the women in the churches are telling their men, we want you to stand up for these rights of these brothers talking
And
about
it was
tonight
one
on
woman
Community
who
Crossfire.
started. It was one woman who started the investigation on the state. Alicia Clark. She started that, and when she started that, every preacher around got on a bandwagon with her. Okay, and you're right. Hillary Clinton. What did she go down south and get? She got the females. All females. The kids got shot and stuff. She got them all.
Yes, sir.
I hope she go back and help those females.
Well, if you think about what Kamoko just said, every 4 years we had a Democratic Party, you got to support a Democrat.
That's right.
Explain to me why do you have to support a Democrat that does nothing for you?
That's right.
Because
At
it beats the heck out of supporting Donald Trump. And what we have to do is we have an opportunity to make or break leadership in the Democratic Party. And in my opinion, we're not doing the best that we can do to utilize the power that we have at hand to be able to make substantive change within the party itself and within leadership in the party itself. Because there is no excuse at this point for there to be any controversy, anything contentious whatsoever about the expansion of the port. There is no excuse, in my opinion, for there to be any remaining excuse from anybody in the Democratic Party to support a weighted funding formula for higher poverty schools. Right. There is no excuse for the continuation of ongoing discrimination in hiring, promotion, and discipline within the state of Delaware as an employer. Right. And as we move forward, it's our responsibility not to sit here and complain, but as we come back and you're paying for this show every month, to say, community, we as part of the so-called leadership, this is what we're urging you to do. And there's going to have to come a point in time, I'm sorry, where we're going to have to go back and do public demonstrations and create some things that folks didn't like. You know, when we wanted the first black superintendent, we stopped everything in town. When Hicks wanted the crossover on Governor Prince Boulevard, we shut down Governor Prince Boulevard.
Yes, we
and
did.
as things there have been contentious issues out in the Route
When Fuzzy
913
Government got
corridor,
shot, we
and every
shut
time
down
I
the
say,
mall.
you know what, we don't have to do this, because if put come to shove, I don't need 100 people. I need 10 cars to shut down Route 13, and all the businesses up and down Route 13, who have nothing to do with this will make sure that we get what we want because they won't be able to operate. It's those kind of things, thinking outside the box, kicking the box over, and going back to our roots in terms of what we've been successful at in terms of bringing about systemic change in a nonviolent way. Those are the things that we need to be working on.
And I say again, the women, I'm ready to vote for the women running for office on all levels, because I know that the so-called man, when that female comes up there and tells him what the problems are, he'll pay more attention and has paid, history shows, have paid more attention to what they say. Why? Because all the problems we have in society, in America, in this world, are dealt with poverty, like he said, poverty the issue, and who suffers the most? The women, the children, and the elderly. From all that. So if we get to our women.
Why you look at me when you say elderly?
Because I mean,
I appreciate that.
You know, listen up, look. I know everybody. This has been very, very great dialogue. So we're gonna do, because they gotta go home. Everybody get a minute to say what's on your mind. We're gonna close it out, because I know when we get to Mr. Street, he's gonna take 3. So we're gonna go to you.
Well, I just would like to see the River Edge project move forward.
What is River's Edge?
River Edge is a piece of land south of the Delaware Memorial Bridge that Comoko thought about a year and a half ago to develop the port and put it all together, and we could create at least 10,000 jobs, if not more. And these jobs pay anywhere from $70,000 to $100,000. And all we want to do is put Delaware back on the map instead of being last as far as the economy. Move them up to maybe 32nd. And this project we've been talking about for a year and a half to 2 years, and it makes no sense.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that that this should be the #1 economic development project to develop blue-collar jobs in the state. Yes. And when I talk about the Democratic Party, I'm saying we blindly vote Democratic, and then we need to shape the issues and the platform of the Democratic Party. Yes. We should not stop following it, and we should start leading it and shaping the platform, because 90% probably of black folks in the state vote Democrat. Yes. And so that 90% need to be reflected in the issues and the platform of the party in terms of the issues that impact our community, and make them do what they're supposed to do to uplift our community along with other communities.
I would just say we need radical change with jobs. We need radical change with education. We need radical change with incarceration and the criminal justice system. We need radical change in the state worker situation. And I believe I know to be true that we need radical change in abolishing the death penalty. So I'm coming here tonight. I'm thankful to be here in this space. I want to ask every Delawarean that's listening to contact one or all of these legislators, Speaker Pete Schwarzkopf, Representative Val Longhurst, Representative Oshinsky, Representative Mulrooney, Representative Bennett. Any one of those legislators, contact them, tell them to vote yes on Senate Bill 40. But to bring us together, the Moral Monday movement doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the people of Delaware. And we talk about a platform to get our folks out to have those moral demonstrations. If we need to shut down Route 1 or shut down 13, we have a moral witness that's happening every Monday. This is going to be the last Monday. Next week, the week of March 7th, we're moving it to Wednesday. It's going to be Moral Witness Wednesday. It's going to start at 4:30 in the afternoon, so the people that work can get off and join us in Dover. But I want to bring people together. It's not my movement, it's our movement. If we can grow this, if we can make this something that we can all use to exercise all of our voices in all these different areas, I think we can show the people that we're here and we're ready to exercise our power.
Well, I finished 41 years and 2 months as an education advocate, and I've watched our system begin as one of the most segregated school systems in the country to becoming one of the most desegregated school systems in the country, back to its beginning place now of being yet again among one of the most segregated school systems in the country. And what folks don't understand is, and I said this at the state board meeting, I know after being in the arena now for 41 years, I will never live to see fairness and equity in this school system. And I look at my grandson, look at my granddaughter, and I don't think that they're going to be part of a system that's going to be fair. The legislation that's pending now is compromised because I believe that the Charter School Act, the Neighborhood School Act, the Choice School Act, all are unconstitutional, have had a segregated effect. All we've asked for is a reduction in the number of districts in the city of Wilmington and additional resources for high poverty schools. And I can only say this, nobody in the system is going to get any peace, and I'm not leaving the arena until those two things are accomplished. And the fact of the matter is it's gonna take more than me, okay? It's gonna be a time where we're gonna have to either fill up a boardroom, a courthouse, or a street to see to it that we get some fairness. I hope I'm wrong. And I remember about a year or so before Judge Williams passed, and you know, one of my primary mentors, and he said that one of the things in their mind, working with Mr. Redden, was the fact that if the nation became desegregated in the school system, that as a nation overall would become desegregated, and eventually we would have an African-American president. And he said he never thought he would live to see it. And I watched him hold back tears when the reality was that President Obama was elected. I don't think I'm gonna live to see fairness in this system, but those two things, the system is not going to get any rest. And I am going to need the community to help me bring about those two things that just make common sense and are just a matter of fundamental fairness. And we're at the point now where you got the Christina School Board, where you got somebody who, a white board member gets on a bus, is found guilty of harassing a African-American bus driver, and that person's still sitting there, and we're not able to do anything about it. Oh, we have a problem with the system that's crying out for relief and change.
Let me say this right quick. State workers, y'all need to come together with us. We have not forgot about you. You need to watch the politicians that come
All
around
of
you.
us?
If they ain't with you, they're against you. If they don't support you, they're against you. You need to come together when we call for protests and stuff, or if you all want to sit down, let's sit down and let's make this work this election year. Along with labor and everybody else, let's make it work for the benefit of our people, our kids.
Those of us from the faith community, you know, I'm involved in the faith community more now than the secular community. If we learn how to teach our people love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice again, then we'll be able to do everything that we just talked about tonight. And I hope that we done said something to you that will make you realize that you need to get up off of your behind, stop complaining, and join one of our activities and try to make a change. Because I got 23 grandchildren and 11 great-grandchildren, and I agree with Jay, I may not live to see that justice that's going to prevail, that need to be prevailing before I leave here.
Okay, well, you know, in closing, I just like to say very, very, very good dialogue, but we all have to understand that collectively is how we get things done. We don't have to agree with a person's point at that time, but understand the whole movement and the progress that we're going. And I tell everybody, with a big ship, you know, it goes off course. It doesn't get back on course in an instant. It's gradual. And what I see is gradual movement. I see a lot of people with good ideas, and I'm glad to see younger people with great ideas because,
Amen.
as if I tell everybody all the time, and some people get upset, the issues that we're dealing with, yes, we're concerned, it's their problem, and they have to fix it. We can guide them, we can mentor them, we can give them examples. They're the ones who's going to have to fix it because they have to make the world right for their child. See you the second Sunday, 1 p.m., Channel 28, and NAACP Roundtable.
I'll be working.
Okay,
See y'all.